As the world begins to emerge from the cave of the 21st century and opens its eyes onto the suffering from centuries of injustice and the bastardization of what it means to be free, the New Nomos podcast is a call for a new beginning, a call for the new men and the new women that yearn to be truly free, a call for us to fulfill our destiny, a call for a new nomos on the earth. Welcome to the New Nomos podcast. I'm Abdallah Datan, inviting you to join me on this journey of discovery, to define what the New Nomos is and what we need to get there. Hello and welcome back to the New Nomos podcast. This episode is with Kofi Ofosu, a self-taught freelance character designer and visual storyteller from Ghana. He's been fascinated with comic books and cartoons since childhood, a love affair that eventually inspired his decision to become a working professional in the art industry. But it wasn't as easy as making that one decision. Instead of the usual route through art school, pressured by his parents to complete a business science degree at university, he had to forge his own path, learning his trade via YouTube tutorials and online courses in between completing a bachelor's degree. Through his sheer drive and a yearning to fulfill his highest potential, Kofi is now an authority in his field. He works on global contracts for the likes of DreamWorks Animation and Netflix. He hosts his own podcast, Fiko's Corner, and is actively engaging with his strong following online to inspire a new generation of African artists and creatives. While this episode touches on Kofi's journey, his philosophy in life, and what it takes to be a creative in the 21st century, it's also an exploration into the time we live in and the huge potential contained within the continent of Africa. So, without further ado, I present to you episode 37, Metamorphosis, Africa's Time to Shine.
Africa is like prime real estate in terms of like opportunities and, bringing new and fresh things, fresh ideas to the system to give it a jolt and even create opportunities for the continent. And, there's so much room because someone once put it this way, that any problem is like an opportunity. It's all about how you look at it. And Africa, as much as it's a very beautiful, diverse continent, we have a lot of problems. So that means we have a lot of opportunities to create businesses, to just, change the continent, change the lives of the people, and, create a new world here. So I'm super excited for what the future holds for Africa, for especially in the creative arts or in entertainment art. And I can't wait to see. I want to be a part of the process of change, and I definitely can't wait to see what Africa turns into in the next decade.
Well, I mentioned that I was traveling and I was in the UK for 2 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, what I saw on the ground was, across the world, but I really felt it in the UK, is that the cost of goods are going up massively.
For sure.
And everyone's worried about the cost of utilities, right? With everything that's happening in Russia and the impact that's having globally, and the cost of gas and all of the utilities that are needed to heat people's homes. Now, as Europe goes into winter, there's serious struggles that the people are going to be facing over the next few months, and I don't see it getting any better. Now, at the same time, I come back to South Africa and I'm just thinking about my experience here, and here we have load shedding. We have, and we even have an app to tell us when load shedding is.
Sure.
So we know between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock that in the city of Cape Town there will be no electricity, and there's an app to tell us. It's fantastic. It's like
Sure.
it's so hilarious. Um, but South Africans are resilient. Africans are resilient. We're used to the system not working. We're used to not having electricity. We're used to not having
Sure.
money. We're used to crime being a daily occurrence. But that builds strength of character,
Sure.
resilience, and all of these things. And while Europe's kind of heading towards difficulty where the populace rely on the state, when the state can't provide, the people are going to really struggle
For
because
sure.
they're not used to it.
For sure.
So, and this is the case across the world. So,
Hmm.
where are the most resilient people? And when I look, I'm like, yo, it's Africa's time to shine. It's
Exactly.
like we've got the psychological things, we've got the actual ground of Africa, which is the last farming land of the world,
Hmm.
and yeah, man. As you said, there's so much opportunity, and it's really exciting.
For sure. Because, like, what you're touching on in terms of like in Africa, as I was saying, like, there are so many problems. So we learn to be creative in spite of the lack that we face, right?
Mm.
Because like I totally relate to the power outages. Sometimes I'm working, there's a power. At least you guys are way better on that front because you have an app that tells you here you don't have
It's
any
just a
app.
joke.
It's a joke down here. So they just take off the light. So if you are working for a client, you need to deliver stuff. It means now you have to figure a way out to go to another part of town that has electricity so that you can get the work done. And
Yeah.
even that's just by the wayside. But I feel like as Africans, because we've learned how to manage through lack, it gives us a certain toughness and resilience that you would not necessarily find in some parts of the developed world because it's like certain things are always provided by the state. The systems
Mm.
really do work. So in comparatively, it makes people's lives more manageable as opposed to
Mm.
here. When people are struggling, they are really like struggling. Like it's crazy. You go to like the outskirts of towns and you see like how destitute people can be because of the
Mm.
system not really working. But regardless of that, I feel like because of our ability to withstand like pressure and stay creative and that's one thing in Ghana. We one thing that we really have that I really appreciate is our humor. That's one way we kind of it helps to manage the pressures of life and the problems that we
Mm.
face in our country because I always keep telling my friends like I feel like some of the things that are happening here if it were to happen in some developed country, like the people are not going to take the shit. They are going to riot and there'll be like so much problems that the government is going to face. But it's like, regardless of the problems he faced out here, it's like people make light of it, people laugh over it. And it's a way that we, navigate some of the problems that we face. And I feel like so much creative talent intelligent people, like so many gifted people down
Mm.
here, right? And sometimes because the systems don't work, they stifle the creativity, the talent, and it even leads sometimes to brain drain, where it's like a lot of our talented folks are moving out of the continent and they're excelling
Mm.
out there. And for me, I find that sad
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if we are to start to think about ways to bring solutions to the problems that we face in our part of the world, we can maintain, the innovators amongst us, the intelligent ones. We can make use of everyone's gifts, everyone's talent, regardless of the field that you are in, and build a better world in Africa where like people from other parts of the world would even envy us, and they'll be like, yo, I want to be in
Mm.
Africa, or I want to live in Mozambique, I want to live in Ghana or South Africa. Same, in the same way that right now, if you ask any average like African, like, yo, do you want to travel to the States or do you want to travel to Europe? They, without thinking about it, they are like, yes, I want to go there, because they see those places as a land of opportunity. But I feel like we have even greater opportunity here. And if we're able to set up systems and make things better for ourselves as Africans, things are really going to turn around and change.
But that's my, you see, this is what I see. I'm like, I go to Europe and I go to the UK and that's the country that I grew up in,
Okay.
right? And I see it and I look at it and I'm like, this thing is finished. The people are, but and I'm not saying that as a kind of, there's a deep sadness in
For
that as well,
sure.
because this is my country,
Where
it's
you
where I
grew
grew
up.
up. But I walk around the streets and I look at the people and I look at the situation and I see what's happening on the ground, and I'm like, ooh, this is not looking very nice over the next 20, 30
For
years,
sure.
right? Now, where's the opportunity? Where's the future? And from my understanding, it's going back home.
Sure.
And when I say going back home, I'm saying like for the subcontinentals in the United Kingdom, it's like go back to Pakistan and Afghanistan and these places. And what I'm actively calling on lots of the significant black Americans is go back to Africa. America's also collapsing. You look at the dollar's finished. The political situation is dire. I mean, you get. I mean, what 4 or 5 years ago they had the choice between Trump and Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then it gets to between Trump and Biden, and it's like Biden is not president because he is great. Biden is president simply because you don't want Trump. And so then it's just getting worse and worse and worse. You look at the United Kingdom and you've got Boris Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
then this non-entity of a woman, right? And now you've got this new guy in as well. And it's the political system's finished.
It's messed
And
up.
in Africa, we know how to handle lack of governance and a broken political system.
Sure.
And like, so there's opportunity. No one relies on the government because we know that they're so obviously corrupt. And so on the ground roots, you can do things, and you can, and it's exciting.
Exactly.
And yeah,
No.
Africa, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so much that can be done, and definitely what you touched on, like even those in the diaspora who are out there, like making a call out to them, like, yo, there are creatives here, there are people here who are ready and willing to learn what they also have to offer to us, right? And
Mm.
grow and get better and develop our industries, develop our knowledge base, build something tangible down here. Because as you're saying, like, dude, it we can't always look outward. We need to start creating and cultivating our own garden here around us.
100,
Because
100%.
like my father would always say, like, okay, you that want to go to the States or to Europe, they sat down and they cultivated their surroundings for it to be comfortable or conducive for them. And that's what you are
Mm.
finding attractive. So it makes sense that we as Africans should sit down and see how do we. Yes, we are in dire straits, right? We are in a dire situation. We are facing a lot of issues, poor leadership, mismanagement of resources, corruption, and it's a part of our life. However, we have to become solution oriented. What can we do to start making changes? So we take the issue of leadership. So it means even from the ground level, education, how we are educating our kids. What kind of information are we giving them? What kind of mindset are we building in them? How are we transforming their thinking so that they are thinking outside of the box, outside of the
Mm.
societal norms that have been created, so that they can become better leaders? They can bring they can inject new life into the system and not keep repeating the old pattern that hasn't been working all these years. Because Albert Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We've been doing the
Yes.
same thing over and over and
Yes.
over and over again. Now we have to make changes. And it's very easy for us to blame other people, right? Like, oh, the government is bad. Oh, these people are not doing what they need to do. But I'm of the belief that if we are to change first starts with the man or woman you see in the mirror. Because
Yes.
there's a quote that goes that if you want to change the world, first change you. Then the world,
Yes.
you become the mirror that the world will start to reflect. So for
Yes.
me, I'm very big on self-development, like we taking responsibility as individuals, looking at ourselves. Where are the parts of our lives that we can do better, where we can improve? And as we improve, we are also touching the lives of those around us, our family, our friends, our acquaintances, business partners. And from you are creating a rippling effect that begins to transfer outward. And those people who are connected to you affect those they are also connected to, and it keeps going on and on. So the change for
Yes.
me, it always starts with us, you and I, as the individual. What am I doing? What am I, Kofi, doing to start to make the push in the right direction? And once we start to conscientize each other in that way and make ourselves realize, like, yo, the responsibility lies on each individual to make Africa great or to make the world a better place. The responsibility lies on each and every one of us. We all have a load to carry. We all have an input. We all have something to do, a part to play in this whole jigsaw or in this whole
Yep.
puzzle. And yeah, I feel like that realization, that will really help us to start to make incremental progress, which will start a chain reaction whereby in the next decade, Africa will be different and the world will be much better.
Well, the thing is that if you, like you said, if you change the way you see the world changes because you're seeing it through your eyes, right?
Exactly.
And if when you change your frequency, you're changing the frequency of the entire universe.
Mm-hmm.
So someone on the other side of the world can feel it, and we all know it. We all know it when you know suddenly you think about somebody, and then they phone you, and you're like, how, how? But that's, and you can't like even explain it scientifically, but we've all had that experience. We all know that it's true, and therefore
For sure.
it's a reality, and we can change things just by changing the way we experience things.
Exactly.
And I think for Africans, like you were saying earlier, it's like the political situation is so dire that what do? You laugh about it and you like
Yeah.
and you smile. Why are you going to let that thing affect your day, affect your life? If you let
Nope.
it affect you, you're finished. You're finished.
Exactly.
Right? But if you just laugh
Exactly.
about it, you keep your positivity, you keep your gratitude for what you do have, and you continue on in your daily life, and
And you
things are
keep
beautiful.
pressing on. Exactly. Because there's once you let that poison in, that negative energy in, it's only going to disrupt your life and actually block you from the good that the universe is ready to give you.
Mm.
And the thing is that, like, someone said, there's a quote that goes something like this, that it's not that positivity or having a positive attitude does everything or is the whole answer,
Mm.
but it's a much better approach to life than negativity.
Of
Because
course.
yeah, if you're negative all the time, it's going to block so many blessings, opportunities from you. You're not going to see the beauty in life. And already around us through the news, we are already being programmed about how bad the world is. Like there are 100 reasons why like you shouldn't keep going on, you should give up. So you have to have a positive outlook in life, or else you'll be swamped out by the negative
Mm,
stuff that you'll be hearing on the radio, on the news. And yeah, for me, it's a conscious decision that we all have to make and become solution oriented, because it's
mm,
not enough to identify the problem. That's half of the equation.
mm,
Now we have to start being solution oriented and start putting the solutions into practice, and not just theorize that, oh, if we could do this and that, we could change our situation. But rather, what are we actually doing? Are we going to the schools to engage with the kids there, to help them see the newer possibilities, to help build them into better leaders? Are we helping in community initiatives around us to make, maybe clean up our community, make it a safer environment? All of these things, we need to start to look at the solutions, because the problems, we know of all of them. Now we have to focus and
mm.
start building.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's awesome. How did you get into animation?
If we are going to talk about how I got into animation, we'll have to go a bit back. As a kid, I've always been inspired by animations I'll watch, comics I'll read, and I didn't know at the time that it's actually a job that people do and they get paid for.
Ah,
So I just saw it as a magical thing. Like, yo, this thing is so magical. I don't, how is it made? I don't know. So over time, as I grew up and I got introduced to the internet, I started to understand, like, oh, this is actually a job. And art is way bigger than what we are taught in high school, like about like traditional art, like pottery, paintings, basket weaving, those kind of things. There's more to it. Where now I'm learning about entertainment art. There are people who storyboard, there are animators, character designers, blah, blah, blah. And by understanding that, I started to really hone in on what it is that I want to do. So I realized like character design appealed to me the most out of all of the different things that I had seen. And once I understood that, okay, I can actually go to school for this, and there are colleges out there that offer the education to for that field, right? I actually told my parents before I was about to graduate for college. I told them like, hey, you know what? I want to do this art thing, and and I I want to go to the States Art Center College of Design, and I want to pursue art. And mind you, in Ghana, when we talk about art, it's societally not, it's frowned upon.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
seen
yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
a viable source of income. So they were like, nah, we pay your school fees. You're going to business school here. And I was like, cool. So that knocked me down a few points, because I was like, yo, I didn't get the opportunity I was looking for. However, I was like, you know what, for the next 4 years, I'm going to be in business school, right? How do I use this next 4 years outside of my lecture hours, right? How do I use the next 4 years to study and become and build the skills, so that before I'm done with university, I can already be working in the art industry, right? So I had already been using social media. I was already familiar with YouTube. I'd been watching a lot of tutorials there. So now I started to create a self study plan, right? Because I don't have any teachers around me. There are no like solid animation schools here in Ghana. So
Mm,
I looked at internet as my teacher. Like I'm going to seek out as much information as I can and build my own knowledge base. So that's how that factored into how I use social media. So what I would do is, if I found an artist who I really loved,
mm,
I would follow them, and then I am keeping an eye on them. Like, what are they sharing? What are they talking about? They are talking about, oh, I read this book and it's like a phenomenal book on anatomy. I've noted it down. I took
mm,
this course. It's really good. Or A friend of mine is giving out this course online. It's really good. You should check it out if you want to get better at 2D animation. I'm noting it down. Sometimes if I was facing issues, I would like reach out to these creative professionals like, hey, I want to be a character designer. I'm having some challenges. I'd like to know like what it is that your work entails. Then they give you a breakdown. I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. Or like even portfolio wise, what do I have to have in my portfolio? So I was doing information gathering. I was studying by myself. I knew that on Monday, maybe I'm studying anatomy. Tuesday, I'm doing a bit of 2D animation. I had written everything down on my calendar and I was following the system. And I'll tell you, at the beginning, I wasn't the most disciplined, consistent student. But over time, as I really solidified my resolve and I really got more and more passionate and I learned more about the craft, it really instilled a sense of discipline within me because I was like, I really want to do this for my work because I am of the belief like the best place you can ever be as a human in the work world is to do something you love and to get paid for doing that thing. Because whether you like it or not, whatever work you do, there will be ups and downs, there'll be challenges. I'd much rather do what I love so that even if there are ups and downs, I still have that passion for the work and I'm not going to hate the work or hate what I'm doing. So over time, used through social media, I kept posting. I've been posting online since like 2013. I already, I have the vision, like, you know what? I need to build my online presence. So I started posting quite early with my best friend, Alfred Champon. He's a phenomenal character designer. And even he was a major part of my growth process. Because what we did was we created a WhatsApp group called We Bleed Ink. And what we would do is, if I created some work, I'd post it on there. It was just the two of us. If he created some work, he post it there. If we saw resources that we thought would be helpful to each other, we'll post it there. And through that level of collaboration and friendly rivalry, we kept growing, we kept building with each other, and we kept helping each other out. And we started getting opportunities. We would discuss like, yo, this contract, it doesn't look too good. Kofi, he'd be like, yo, Kofi, what do you think about these numbers? And I'm like, yo, or maybe you should shoot for a higher, rate. And we'll be even giving each other advice. And so like through that over time, I get a gig, my first official gig from DreamWorks Television Animation to design a cast of characters. I start the gig. I realize how very little I know. I realize
Amazing.
I realize I'm not ready at all. But that's the thing. It broke me down, but it gave me an opportunity to build back up much stronger. Truly understand what my work entails, what is expected of me. So even that's a testament to, you shouldn't be afraid of failure. Failure is part of the process, and the more if you fail smartly, you are going to learn a lot of stuff, and you are going to grow exponentially as a creative, as a business person, entrepreneur, whatever it is that you are doing. So through the failure, I really started to understand how the world of animation works, contracts, staying on schedule, deadlines, communication, how to actually communicate with the people you are working with your art directors. Maybe because of a light out, I need to communicate ahead of time. Like, hey, I've had a, I've had a light out, and I cannot deliver on the set deadline. So please, could you extend it? So through that, I'm also learning about communication, becoming more of a holistic person. So I'll say like that's a little bit about how I started my journey into the animation industry. I have no formal art education, where it's like I went to a school. It was all through the power of the internet. So I'm a huge believer in like if you are very passionate about something and you're ready and willing to put in the effort, like nothing can stop you.
Nothing can stop you. Nothing can
Yeah.
stop you. When you got this DreamWorks contract
Hmm.
and you realized you didn't know what you needed to know, what happened next, like both outwardly and within you?
What happened next? So within me, I was very sad because it's very difficult to come to terms with the fact that, yo, like, I know very little. Humbling because when you are in your own, little circle of artists, or in your high school, you feel like you're a big shot, because because you're not exposed to the international standard. You're just exposed to the standard around you. So you feel like, oh man, dude, I'm like one of the best, man. Like, hands down. Once I started to understand that, it helped me to really come to terms with, like, not just looking at my output from what I'm already used to. I have to look at the international standard. Because for me, I'm of the belief that if you just work in such a way that your output, you're just looking at your local community, right? And you're not thinking about the international standard. Yeah, maybe you might achieve success in your locality, but internationally you might not be recognized. However, if you shoot for the international standard of how things are done, of excellence, that standard of excellence, you'll be recognized internationally, and locally when you come here to, you will be recognized by our people because they see the strides that you're making, they see the progress and your attainment. So
Yeah.
then it changed my mindset about how I look at my work, not not taking it for granted, or I kind of started had to look at it from a like I'll use this word, holy. I have
Yeah.
you have to be dedicated to it. You can't half-ass it. You have to learn as much as possible, learn from the masters, the dead ones and the ones who are alive, and be humble enough to, you know, to be teachable. Because that's
Mm,
one thing that I realize, like, when you're young and you're now coming up, it's easy for us to allow our egos to get in the way so that we
mm,
can't truly learn and
yeah.
get the information that we need to fully unleash our potential. So once I understood that, now I changed the way I look at my work, and I was really pushing for excellence. How do I truly express myself at the highest level? It's not
Mm,
about Ghana. It's about the whole world. How do I create
yes.
work that is going to impact the whole world? And that's how I've looked at it ever since. And then I started to see the improvement in my own work rate, improvement in the quality of my work. And others also began to notice. And like, job offers started rolling in, like, yo,
Mm,
cause here's the thing. Every work opportunity I've gotten so far, I've never applied. And I'm not saying that to be cocky. I'm
yes.
saying that because when I would apply, I wouldn't get the work. When I'd reach out and I'm like, hey, I want to work. Do you have anything for me? They're like, nah. But when I focused on the work and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the best work that I can and really focus on the craft. Along the way, then you see someone like, hey, I saw what you posted yesterday or last week. I really love it. Could you do that for us? So,
Mm.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. There is one thing that I have to ask you.
Sure.
What is character design?
So, simply put, right, for any animated show. So because I'm a character designer for 2D animation, I'll speak at that level. However, character design applies to so many other areas outside of just 2D animation. But let's focus on 2D animation for now. So character design for any animated show or animated movie, there's a cast of characters that the story is about. Because you cannot tell a story without the actors or without the characters who act in the story and who the story revolves around. So, as a character designer, you are tasked with the responsibility of visualizing these characters who'll be acting in the story or who'll be playing various roles in the story. They could be the villain or the main character or the sidekicks or the character's family and what have you. So that's like simply put, who what we do as character designers. We create the cast for the animated show. And character design can even extend further. Like even when you have a picture book, right? A children's book, picture book, you need to design the characters in that book as well. There might be a main character. It could be young Kofi. So how does young Kofi dress? Who is his best friend in the store in this picture book? I have to design and visualize that character. So that's just a little bit about character design.
So they will tell you the story and the
Hmm.
kind of journey of this character, and you have to take that image with words into a physical image of a animated character.
So let me go
Is that
more in
right?
depth. You kind of have a picture, a partial picture of it. So they would, for example, with an animated show, they will give you the script, and the script is like outlining what is happening through the episodes in the show. They will also give you actually a character brief. So like character A, these are their properties. They are male. They are from South Africa. This is their age. This is their sense of fashion. This is their attitude or temperament. So, getting all of these variables starts to help you in the research process. Because if they have a gothic aesthetic, I that is the imagery that I'll be researching so that I can draw
Mm.
inspiration from that aesthetic and use that to help me design like the clothes on the character. If like maybe they're a shy person, I have to understand, okay, if the person is shy, how would they pose their body? What kind of expressions
Mm.
would they have? Because a confident character, you're going to pose him way differently than a shy character, or a very loud character, you're going to pose him differently than a quiet a character who is quiet and more reserved. So all of these things your art director will give you, or through a dialogue, you can also throw in ideas like, oh, I think we could do this with the character. And if they, so it's more of a collaborative process as well, depending on the kind of team or project you are working on, you know.
Does that not ruin your life? Do you not see everybody as a caricature?
Exactly. That's the thing. So like if I'm like walking on the street, I'm looking at like someone could be passing, I'm like, yo, that's a good character design.
Right? And you meet someone who's like a real character, and you're gonna be like, oh
Exactly.
yeah, I want to. Aren't you like
Uh-huh.
constantly painting pictures in your head of who these people are? Oh,
Exactly.
brilliant,
Exactly.
brilliant.
So you kind of have to be a student of life, very observant, you know,
Yes.
seeing patterns, see like being keenly observing the world around you, because you can't be a great character designer if or even a great storyteller or creative if you are not conscious of the world around you and you are not truly taking in like the world around you, because like art is a reflection of life, and
Mm,
life is the mother of all art. You cannot create in a vacuum. We are all
mm,
inspired by the world around us, so you have to be a student of life in that way.
mm. So on this topic of inspiration, what inspires you, and where does that inspiration come from in you?
What inspires me? So I feel like life is like my greatest inspiration, like in all its forms, from
Mm,
human beings, people, like meeting different interesting people who have different stories and lives, their own struggles, hardships, how they overcame them. This inspires me. Even animals, you know,
mm.
there are so many cool creatures out there, colors, shapes. Because as a kid, I always loved to watch National Geographic, David
Yeah,
Attenborough, and he would be in the jungle and they'll be in the
yeah.
ocean, and you're looking, and I'm like, yo, all of this is so cool and inspiring. Like I want to tell stories that captures all of these, all of these experiences, creatures. all of these perspectives from people from different parts of the world. So I feel like for me, ultimately, like I'm truly inspired by life. Like even it's not always like crazy futuristic stuff for me. Like you know, it can even be simple, like something that happened to a friend, them telling me a story of something that happened to them, and I'll be like, yo, that's really interesting. That could be turned into a novel, or it could be turned into a picture book or a comic or a short
Mm.
animation. And so yeah, that's my
So are
main
you?
inspiration.
I mean, character design is obviously your kind of key expertise. What else are you doing in that field? Because I mean, you've mentioned stories and you've mentioned storyboarding and storytelling, etc. Are you also doing that actively?
So I'm learning the other part of the the other segments or department of animation because like and I don't even limit myself to animation, but let's say animation because like ultimately I want to be an art director. And when I say be an art director, not necessarily an art director in some studio. I want to art direct my own projects, create my own
Mm.
comics, animated shows. So I need to understand the various arms of the animation industry so that if I'm working with a storyboarder, I know what it takes or what goes into it. If I'm working with an environment artist or what have you, or even the writer, I kind of have some a level of knowledge and I can coordinate the team and bring my
Mm.
vision or a project to life. So
Mm.
for me, I don't limit myself or box myself in to the idea of like I am just a character designer. I there's a at a time I put on my bio on my various social media that I'm a visual storyteller. That is what I see myself as. I tell stories through visuals. So ultimately, those visuals could be music videos, it could be animated movies, it could be even movies, live action movies, or it could be comics. So that's what I am shooting for. Like
You said at one point you defined yourself as that.
so,
So what
you
what
see,
are you defining yourself as now?
here's the thing. I have to. You first have to establish uh, the main thing, then you grow out from there. Because if you are too scattered, right, and you don't have focus, you are always going to be floating around. So I what I did was I came back to focusing on, you know what, let's kill this character design thing. Let's put it to bed and establish your name in that area so that in the background, I'm still learning about all of these other things that will make me a visual storyteller. I feel like I'm not there yet. I need to give myself some time to grow and develop. But at the end of the day, right now, I feel like I am a visual storyteller. But I don't want to confuse those who might be ready to employ me now. So I leave it there. Once I've built to a certain level, I'm going to go back to what I originally have always been, which is a visual storyteller. So that's how I look at it.
I I would say
Okay.
that if your drive is to be a visual storyteller, then define yourself as a visual storyteller and character designer,
Okay.
and don't limit it to anything because the
Okay.
possibilities are endless. So
Endless.
you
Exactly.
can be whatever you want to be.
Exactly.
And if you believe in yourself right now and you feel in yourself right now that I'm a visual storyteller, then you are a visual storyteller right now.
Exactly.
And then the
Exactly.
visual storytelling work will come to you, not because you're applying for visual storytelling work, but
Mm-hmm.
because you are a visual storyteller. Visual storytelling work will come to you in whatever shape or form, right?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
it's about the frequency that we're on,
Exactly. Yeah.
and
I mean,
we pull it towards ourselves.
yeah, I mean, as you're saying this, it just reminded me. I was watching a snippet of your interview with the creator of In Shadow, and you're talking
Lubomir.
about exactly. You're talking about how the future and the past don't exist. What matters is the now. So
Yeah.
you need to focus. If I want to be a visual storyteller, if I see myself there in the future, I have to be it now for it to manifest in the future that I'm imagining. So like it kind of brings that point home. Like
But
you don't
you
have
see,
to
this is,
wait.
yeah, on this point it's interesting because it's not that you're manifesting it in the future. This is the thing that I kind of like. There's a lot of, there's so much content out there saying, like, manifest this, manifest that, you can
Exactly.
manifest whatever you want, law of attraction, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But the thing is, deep down, we want something to happen. We want to be rich, or we want to have the big house, or we want the wonderful partner, or whatever it is, in order to feel something within ourselves. So if we want that thing, it's because deep down we believe that we lack something, and we
Mm,
think that that thing will fulfill our lack. But because we are yearning for it from a place of lack, we're actually pushing it away.
that's
Now,
true.
get if you are able to see what is the feeling that I want to feel, and you feel that feeling now, then you don't need that other thing to feel the feeling you want to feel.
Exactly.
And because you already feel it, you bring it towards you.
That's true.
So it's
That's
like this kind of I don't,
it's a,
it's a kind of very subtle place to be, but it is that thing that change your now. Changing your now changes your past, and it changes your future.
your future. Exactly.
And you
No,
can do it, and there are techniques, and it's. I don't want to say it's not difficult. It's not easy. It's not difficult. It just is.
it is, yeah. Because like what you're saying, it reminded me of I think I was listening to a podcast or something like that, and the guy was talking about the idea of authenticity or
Mm,
even being unique. The idea of they were talking about art style, so being unique, and he was like, art style is something that the more you chase it, the more it runs away from you. But
mm,
when you actually stop chasing it and you accept who you are and you are yourself, your style will naturally show to the world because you're
yes.
expressing who you are. And we are already individually unique. So once you are yourself, then your that touch of your fingerprint or your DNA is on everything you make and create. And people can tell that this was made by Abdallah or this was made by Kofi.
Yeah, and it can't not be unique, because how can any human not be unique? We're all unique,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know? In Shadow, right? In the
Hmm.
middle of it, there's this series of clips which goes from like these magnificent um, African warriors, and it goes through these series of pictures, and then it's like you've got the hip hop artists
Yep.
and the girls twerking in bikinis. If I can remember correctly, there's and then, oh yeah, the hip hop artist is then being like his neck is
Strangled
being
by his chain,
strangled by his chains,
his gold chain,
and then there's these two, again, those that like mirroring those
the
those
slaves.
warriors.
Yeah,
But
the warriors who were
I don't, yeah, but I don't see that as slavery. I see that as like these warrior figures looking in on this guy who's being strangled. And then
exactly.
it continues, and you see the man and the child, the man and the woman and the children in the
Hmm.
urban environment. Then the man disappears, and you're left
Hmm.
with this woman and two children in jail in this kind of urban setting. And
Exactly.
I felt that was a really magnificent depiction of the states of black popular culture in the
Exactly.
United States.
I totally agree. I felt that as well. Like because it was kind of like the your like the warriors and the people who came before them went through so much for them to I don't know if I'll say come to a lower level because I feel like rap and hip hop is like also a thing that the the blacks or the Afro Americans they kind of tried to because they had lost their culture they had to create something for themselves out of
Mm.
what they had come into in
Yes.
this in America so they combine like different parts of African culture and musicality to create their own thing. The sad part is like sometimes some of the values that it might promote might not be in the best interest of the people, but at the same time, I feel like it's because I was listening to this guy KRS-One, and he was talking about the actual history, like the beginnings of like hip hop, and he was talking about how the in the beginning what it was about was basically like speaking truth to power, like
Yes.
educating the people, like telling the truth, like opening the people's eyes and bringing them out of unconsciousness and fighting for the right causes to bring and instantiate change, like the kind of change that they want to see. So yeah, it was that was like an interesting conversation that he was having. And I was like, man, like hip hop is like so many things, and
But again, it
mhm,
comes back to this thing, this the point at which the hip hop artist becomes a superstar. Because as
mhm,
soon as they become a superstar, they're now no longer an artist from the perspective of the producers and the record labels. They're now a product.
exactly.
And that then shifts the whole thing. And now your contract for your $100 million or whatever it is says clearly you have to release 10 albums in 10 years or whatever it is, 5 albums in 5 years, 2 albums in 2 years, but you're contracted to deliver on something. Otherwise, they're going to take you down,
Hmm.
right? So now you are forced into producing these things. And I feel that that's one of the aspects of this, the 27-year-old club or whatever they call it, of these young artists that end up committing suicide because they're creating art, and whether it's like Amy Winehouse
Hmm.
or these kind of like Kurt Cobain and these figures that it's almost, it's like at the point at which they find themselves being used, it's almost too late. And I think that's also something I think it's also very relevant with Justin Bieber right now. I
Hmm.
mean, like, and all of his kind of physical deterioration, all of these things. It's, I mean,
You're
he's a
right.
product.
You're
He's a
right. Because
product.
like um, what you're talking about, right? It even ties into. I mean, I won't delve deep into it, but like the whole issue with what Kanye was complaining about, although he was going about it in a way that I don't fully agree with. But
Yeah,
like I've watched videos where uh, Prince, the popular musician
yeah,
Prince,
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
touched on this. Michael Jackson touched on these issues, and later stages in their careers, they would started fighting for ownership, for rights over their own creations, because they realized like they were being given like deals where if you give it to any sound thinking business person, they'll be like, no, this does not benefit you, or it's not even a win-win situation because one party is just getting a lion's share, whereas you, who is like the creative mind behind the thing, behind the music, you are just getting a minor chunk. And so like it, and even right now, I feel like there's a new breed of artists speaking to the music industry because like I see musicians like Tobe Inwigwe, La Russell, Russ. Um, these are some examples. These are artists who have gone entirely independent. They
Yes.
are creating their own stuff. They own all of their masters. They are going direct to consumers. They are building communities. They are building lasting, meaningful communities with their fans. And they are and because of that ecosystem they create for themselves, they get to create art. They don't just look
Mm,
at it as just a product. They get to create something that can truly transform the lives of those they are serving, and
mm,
it moves it from it just being that corporate, you know, uh, point of view where it's only just about the numbers, make us more numbers, sell more stuff, but it goes beyond that. Where now these new type of artists, they are truly building like a human connection with their
mm.
fans. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's the next step forward. Like if we really, if as creatives, right? And for me, I'm very big on like freedom, owning my own stuff as a creative. I feel
Yeah.
like as creatives, we truly have to, or even as Africans at large, we truly have to own our own stuff, own our own stories that we tell, even understand stuff like licensing, rights, the legalities of like selling rights and intellectual property. All of these
Mm,
things are ways by which we can truly secure our futures, or the future of our creative industry. Because
yeah.
if we just if we just if we don't figure out how to own our own stuff and
Yeah.
tell our own stories, other people will just come in and tell our stories for us and make the money off of our own stories. And yes, we'll be happy that our stories are being told, but we are not going to benefit from the telling
Mm,
of our own stories. And that will still leave us at a disadvantage, because at the end of the day, if you don't own anything or you are not creating revenue, then you are also going to be in a dire situation, because you also need the money to fund the creativity. You can't just do the creativity alone.
on the subject of superstars as commodities, I just have to put in here how much respect I have for Dave Chappelle, who, at the height of his career, he saw what was happening and
Exactly.
he said, "Okay, take your money. I'm not interested. I'm done." And he left, and he left it all. And I'm like, respect, respect. I mean, that in this time as well, I mean, that takes serious courage, serious courage. And then the other thing on what you're mentioning now about artists like needing cash and needing money and having to sell their work and benefiting from their work and stuff. I just want to touch on the idea of patronage because I think in a way, I mean, I know from the 300-400 years ago, you would have wealthy individuals that patronized artists, and now
Yeah.
whether that's in like the Mughal Empire where there was architects and painters and singers and you name it, all forms of artist. I mean, very much so. I mean, any culture that had real art, there was someone obviously
Funding it.
funding it. And it's almost like I wanted to just ask your thoughts on patronage today and how could we, I'm just thinking now just from the conversation in with young artists in Africa who maybe don't have access to the bigger fish.
Hmm.
How could one facilitate patronage for youngsters that have potential and drive?
Exactly. That's a good question, because right now I feel like online there are so many I'll say like technologies that allow for patronage. And I I'm of the opinion like the key thing is really building your brand, creating awareness to what you make, and then also focusing on the quality of your craft, because it's not just enough to have a lot of people being aware of you. You also have to offer something of value so that they feel like the exchange is, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an exchange of value, basically.
Mm.
So they feel that the money I'm giving, it's it, it makes sense for the value I'm receiving from you. It could be the music that you created, or the comic project, or whatever, painting, what have you. So like stuff like you have stuff like Patreon, which allows your fans to pay you like an amount every month, and so that allows them to help fund you and keep you going, so that even if you are not necessarily always having access to the big fish all the time, you have these dedicated group of fans or people who are part of your community who help to support you in that way. And you definitely have to give back to them. I've seen like people like Loish. She's a phenomenal artist from the Netherlands. She also has a Patreon. So what she does is she gives tutorials. She she shows behind the scenes, and stuff to her patrons, and that's some of the value they gain from supporting her. And then also another thing is like Kickstarter, where if you have like a proof of concept for a project that you want to realize or bring into fruition, you you know you put together a kind of like a presentation or like a video to kind of show like this is the idea I have. This is like the proof of concept, and if you guys think like it's something you'd love to buy into, like, then you convince them. There you have to have good communication skills, and the thing you are offering should be of value to the people who will be interested. And then through that you can secure funding to help you bring the project together in that way. And those are like some of the few ways. Even on like stuff like YouTube, Twitter, there are ways of even tapping into that as well, right? Because like for Twitter, they have this feature called like the super follow, where people who do that, it's kind of like they are subscribing to you, so they pay a monthly stipend to you because they value what you share on there. Or even on YouTube as well, they do have this tier where people can actually, beyond subscription, like the regular subscribe, they can actually
Yeah.
be support you financially, where
Mm.
you gain from that end as well. And yeah, those are like some of the ways that I've seen that you can tap into. And also apart from that, I feel like you can. This is something that someone like Lois, she does very well, and other artists like Ross Tran, etc., where they think of the works that they are creating in from the standpoint of how can I turn these into products that offer value. So Loish, some of her paintings, she put it out there as prints, so people can buy prints of her artworks, right? And then
Mm.
also even merchandising. There are sites like I've forgotten the name of the site, but basically she put her artwork there, and her artwork are printed on like mugs, pillows, uh, as stickers, etc. So people who really
Right.
love her work in that way can also buy into her stuff in that way as well. So I'd say
Ah,
like those are some of the
cool.
ways that young artists can think about it. Think like a business or an entrepreneur.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I just want to say that I think Patreon is criminal.
Hmm.
I think it's
Why?
absolutely criminal because
Why?
they are abusing people who need patronage. I made a Patreon account for the podcast at a point,
Hmm.
right? Just to experiment with it and see what was what. and the fees that they take, and the exchange rates, and this, that, and the other. I just thought this is absolutely criminal, people, because the platform itself is benefiting obviously from every single transaction, and they take huge fees, and
Exactly.
they are profiting of other people's generosity, and I think it's criminal.
Hmm. No,
Full stop.
I totally understand where you're
And it's
coming from.
and it's the same thing where you've got an artist who's creating the work and somebody who wants to support them, and then there's this middleman that's just stealing money, as far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned, and then pretending it's oh yeah, we need to run our website. It's like, no, you don't. But anyway, let me not get onto my my contentions with Patreon. But then, so there's one aspect which is the money aspect, and then the other side is, I mean, I think you touched on it a lot, which my thing was on the side of mentorship. So someone that wants to get better at whatever their artistic field is, how they can find mentorship. But I think you did touch on it earlier with how in your journey yourself, and really going out there. And if you want to learn, there's endless information out there. All the skills are out there.
Endless.
You can find it on YouTube. You can contact people, etc., etc. Right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
And
Do you
like,
know any who like something actually? Now that I mention it, uh, and maybe I just like literally put this out to the world,
hmm
and whoever's listening to this, if there are any young female amapiano artists, right, in that field that wants a record contract in the UK, get in contact with me and send me some of your stuff. Get in contact. Hit me up.
exactly.
But you have to follow my Instagram and my YouTube. You know? Value for value.
Exactly.
Um, you've mentioned it in your journey in the interview I did with Lubomir. He also touched on it, and it's this thing that the young artist that wants to pursue that career, the parental conditioning sees it as like this is not a profession, this is not sustainable, right?
Exactly.
And I think in the African context, at least from my experience of the kind of cultural atmosphere, is like this idea of having to study something that will give you a good job, and the importance of that, and breaking out of that, I think for a lot of youngsters is very difficult, because
Mm.
like you said, your parents are paying for your tuition, your parents are kind of your guides almost. Now, what advice do you give to youngsters who are in that situation?
So to the youngster, I'll start here. If with regards to the sometimes the conflicts that can come because of the societal programming, right, from your parents, like they'll be like, "Nah, we don't agree with this. We don't think you should do this." Your parents, this is something I had to understand for myself. Your parents don't hate you. They are come. Yeah, yes. I thought my parents didn't like me. They don't hate you. They are coming from a place of love, but
Yeah,
it's misconstrued
yeah,
because they think that the thing that you want to do, that you've been gifted to do, they think that that thing will not lead you to the outcome that they want for you. The outcome that
mm,
any good parent wants for their kid is for their kid to be self sufficient and have work that they do that can put food on their table, keep a roof over their head, and help them take care of themselves and their future
yeah,
family. That is
yeah,
what every parent, good parent, wants for their kids. So that is the reasoning that they come at it with.
yeah,
So once you understand how they are coming at the issue, that they care about you, but and also they don't understand the thing. They might not understand the thing that you have been destined, the path that you've been destined to tread, because probably That wasn't what they were brought up on. So it's
Mm.
new to them. So that brings in play the idea of communication. You have the vision, you know about the industry, you are learning stuff about it, you are becoming more resolute in your decisions. Communicate with them, help them understand. This is what I
Mm.
want to do. This is what it entails. These are people who are doing it. This is an artist who is working in the field. You can even show them like this is what you can stand to make like in a year. This is an email from an artist I reached out to, and he looked at my work, looked at my portfolio. He gave me very positive feedback. He says I have the talent. I just need to do this and that. So it's communicating because like
Yeah.
in Africa, or in my setting, let me speak for my setting, my part of Africa, what people, the only thing people think about when it comes to like art is like they're just thinking about, oh, like Tom and Jerry, or like the comic you'd see in the local newspaper, or like the pottery work that you see by the roadside.
Yeah.
So they don't see it from the angle of entertainment art. There are people creating animated shows for Netflix. There are people creating comics for webtoons, and they are getting paid. Even there are comic concepts that get turned into movie franchises that make billions of dollars. I'm talking about
Yeah.
Marvel Comics.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so there's so much potential in the creative art. Once you start to communicate with your parents and they start to see like, okay, my kid is very serious about this. They are spending the time, they are putting in the effort, they are working on projects. Oh, I see they are even getting job opportunities. Oh, wow, I watched this animated show. I saw the credits, my kid's name is in there. They are seeing that you are putting in the effort, you are getting results. They will relent. They'll be like, you know what? I think you've got this covered. You know what you're about. So you yourself as a kid or as a young one, you have to be serious about it because of where we come from, we don't necessarily have a thriving art, entertainment art industry. So if you don't, if you are not serious about it and you are mediocre, no studio is going to cross, no studio in the States or in Europe is going to cross the waters and reach out to you and leave all of the amazing artists on their end. If you are mediocre, they are not going
Yeah.
to do that. So you have to be even on the level of the top talent or even above. That's the only way you're going to get attention. So that's why seriousness is required. And then also the other thing is that it all boils down to competency. You have to be competent at what you do. You can't you you can't just be wishy-washy about it where you're like, oh, I just want to be a creative, I just want to express myself. What projects, if you're a comic artist, what comics have you started working on? If you want to be a writer, show me your drafts, your stories you are writing. Because you cannot say you are an artist or a musician if you don't have the pencil in your hand every day, if you don't have the guitar, you are not strumming the guitar, then you just want to be the thing, but you are not doing the thing. And if it's truly a part of your identity, then you are always in it, in that flow. You're always creating along those lines. And I think
Mm.
you have to remind me of the second part of the question. You were
How we can change the mindset of the parents, but actually, now that you're talking, I'm like, it. If you are a youngster and you have this yearning, it's your responsibility to yourself to change the mindset of your parents,
exactly.
and like you were saying, it's like do the work, build some traction, speak to people in the industry that you want to be in, get some kind of feedback. People are really helpful. If you actually reach out to someone,
Exactly.
they a lot of the time they will send a message
Respond.
back, especially if you're not asking for a job or asking for money and you're
Yeah,
asking for advice. People want to actually give
work with you.
advice, especially when it's being when you're asking from a place of kind of yearning, and then do the work, and you teach your parents that
Exactly.
there are other ways, and I think that's the way it is. I think really, in a way, that's the only way it can be done.
Exactly. Because
Um,
like once I started getting the results, like I'll do like a comic cover for Marvel, a DC, and they send me a copy of the book, and I show them like, yeah, that's my artwork. Or I would even do an interview, and I'm speaking on the topic about my experience, and they watch the interview, and they're like, oh, okay, Kofi kind of knows what he's talking about.
yeah,
He's not
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
playing about. This isn't like a game to him. This is like something he really wants to do. He's very knowledgeable about. And then they would come back to me like, yo, we watched that interview. Like, we are starting to get it, you know. And I'm like, yeah.
It's
Um,
amazing. Yeah, I've found that with the podcast as well. It's like people actually listen to it. I'm like, wow.
mhm.
No, but I mean, for me, because honestly speaking, it's like for me, it started just as it was just I wanted to do it, and this is my journey, and everyone I interview is my conversation. It's like I'll share it afterwards, and anyone else can listen to it. But I don't. I'm asking you questions not for everybody else. I'm asking for me because I am
Exactly.
like on this journey of like wanting to learn more and wanting to learn about different fields and different perspectives. It's like, you have the interview with Lubomir, who's like created this absolute masterpiece, and from that, it's led to this conversation with you. And the previous episode is with my mother,
I
and
listen to that.
and that episode was totally, completely inspired from Lubomir. So it's like, and even to get to Lubomir's episode, there was a whole load of inspiration before that. So it's my personal journey. And people always ask
Exactly.
me, "Oh, which one's the best episode?" And I'm like, I can't tell you the best one. I can tell you the worst ones. and I, and they're like, and and then the people, then they say like, okay, where should I start? I'll start at the beginning. Go back to episode one
Exactly.
and listen to episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you tell me which one was the best one. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I'll tell you, you can skip episode such and such, but I'm not going to tell you which one it is. But on the subject of comics, I want to, and since you take notes, there's a brilliant comic book adaptation of Wagner's Ring. So Richard Wagner, I mentioned it in the episode with Lubomir,
hmm
right?
Exactly.
Um, so The Ring of the Nibelung, which is this 16-hour-long opera drama,
hmm
there's a comic book adaptation of it, and
Okay.
it's absolutely brilliant. It's really well done. The animation is awesome. Who's it by? It's by Craig Russell. Have you heard of
Mm.
Craig Russell?
The
You
name
know him,
sounds familiar. It sounds
right?
quite familiar, yeah.
So this is a comic book adaptation, and it says giants plot against gods, who in turn tear human lovers apart, while the lives of great warriors are ruined, and murder after murder is committed in the name of love and gold.
Bro.
And it's a four volume
hmm
adaptation of the Ring Cycle. It's absolutely brilliant, and yeah, I'll put the link in the episode description, and I'll send it to you as well.
For sure. For sure.
Um,
I'd love that.
Yeah, and that's a really good adaptation. So if anyone wants to read The Ring without actually having to read or listen to 16 hours of opera, you can get a taste of it through the comic. Craig
Exactly.
Russell.
Exactly.
Is there anything that you want to share? Like things that I mean,
I mean,
like I mean, just anything that's you want to add into this episode, or anything that you want to
oh,
talk about.
for sure. Like, I was touching upon our previous conversation yesterday about, for me, I feel like one thing that in my industry we don't really talk about or touch upon. I mean, I think is things are changing towards that is, but which is very important to your success as a creative is the issue of mindset. Because I was telling you
Yes.
that I feel like if you have the right, someone who has the right mindset is going to go, but with average skills, will go much further than someone who has the wrong mindset but with above average skills.
Yeah.
Because everything that we experience, everything that we make, we create, right? It all comes out of the mind. So if your mind is not set right, it's not tuned right, right? You don't have a right relationship with the world around you, a right relationship with the concept of gratitude, a right
Mm.
relationship with hard work, etc., failure, you will face challenges, and that's what is going to stop you from fully realizing your potential as a human, as a creative, as an individual. So that's one thing I always like to touch upon, that as creators, we need to delve deeper into that, apart from mindset, even just in general, self-development, developing all the pillars of our lives, right? Because I have like about 5 to 7 pillars, which is spirituality, uh, your finances, your physicality, taking care of your body, um, relationships. How do you relate to your family, with your friends, acquaintances, business partners, etc.? And then even education. Education does not stop at the when you are done with school or when you are done with university. I'm of the belief education is a lifelong journey, which only ends
Yes.
when you take your last breath. So
Yes.
taking care of all of these pillars, right? I feel it makes you a more whole, whole, a much more wholer person who is able to take on all of the vicissitudes of life because you are well rounded, you are more balanced, and all of these parts of your life, these pillars in your life, for you to start to improve them is going to take a lot of introspection, a lot of accountability, really sitting down and looking at your life and analyzing and looking at the dark corners in your life, the parts that you, the parts that we all try to avoid and don't want to look
Yeah.
at. And yeah, that's one. Because once you really develop yourself, you develop your mind, you develop your mindset, and you touch on all of these areas of your life and you grow them together, I feel like you have a much more fulfilling experience in life, irregardless of who you are.
How did you do that? Like, how did you develop yourself? So instead of, yeah, so that somebody can learn from your journey
Sure,
as you've learned from other people's journeys.
exactly. So when it comes to the how, it would I can't pinpoint the exact date, but it started when I would listen to motivational videos, right?
Yeah.
And like I would listen to people like Les Brown, Tony Robbins, etc., and read books. And like by listening to these people, at first I just used to listen to it because of the endorphin boost that it will give. Like that
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
boost
Yeah.
where you're like, yeah, But over time I started to understand these people are applying certain principles to their lives that helps
Mm.
them to maintain a certain altitude of success.
Yes.
So they will talk about certain biographies that they've read, which taught them about how to withstand the challenges of life. They will talk about certain books that they read that help them to learn maybe about finances, maybe about physical health, maybe about
Hmm.
negotiation, about business, what have you. So as I'm listening to, even though it began with, oh, I need an endorphin boost, I want to feel
Yeah.
good about myself, I started to understand these are all teachers reiterating certain principles and laws in life that if you apply as an individual, it will help you. It doesn't mean you're not going to face any challenges, but you'll be able
Yeah.
to manage life better. So then,
Mm.
as they are recommending other speakers, other books, lectures, talks. Then I started to seek out all of these information, and then as I'm seeking out all of this information, I'm starting to understand, like, okay, from reading Brian Tracy, he's talking about goal setting. These are the systems of goal setting. This is the reason why you have to set goals. It's not
Mm.
just something out of the blue. There are reasons behind it. I'm reading books on leadership by John C. Maxwell. He's talking about the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. So
Mm.
I'm building on that. Even though right now I might not necessarily be a leader of any company or a leader of any project, I know I am a leader. For me, I'm a natural born leader. And I know
Yes.
I need
Yes.
to prepare for the challenges ahead for the people I'm going to lead. And I need to
Yes.
be a better, well equipped leader in order to solve the problems that I see around me. So learning
Yes.
about that. So it basically becomes like a self-feeding loop. As I'm
Yes.
meeting new authors, new speakers, reading new books, they are directing me to new information that leads me to new information. Where now,
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Because the more you read, I mean, you read a biography about somebody's life, and in that something happens, or they read a book and they mention the book that they read, or it's mentioned they read this book, and then you're like, oh, let me read that one, and you kind of tag on to their journey, etc., etc. So I want to ask you, what is the greatest biography you've read, or what's the first one that really stands out, and you're like, yeah, read that one.
I'll be honest. The Because I like to listen and watch a lot of videos. Usually, I learn about the people's biographies through the video I'm watching. But the name that's coming to mind right now is
Yes.
Winston Churchill. He
Okay.
he was like the I know he had something to do with quelling one of the world wars, like being the leader that was needed at the time for the free world. And had he not been there, the um, I think the Nazis, they would have basically taken over the whole of Europe, and the world we live in might probably not be the same. It would be a different kind of world we live in. So like even him, what's the name? The democracy we enjoy right now, he's a part of that. But it's not even necessarily about the democracy per se, but like just reading and understanding like the amount of pressure this person is under, and yet being able to have the fortitude, the presence of mind to be able to make decisions, the like decisions that help to keep his people alive, help to create the outcomes that he wanted. And that's the thing. Like for me, I'm not necessarily I generally try, and when I'm listening to about people's biographies, I'm listening to the parts of their life, what they did when they faced like difficult situations. And through that, I can also glean like lessons that I can apply to my life when I face difficult situations. Because we all know how to act when everything is going well. You just be happy, you are always elated because everything is going well. However, very few people know how to handle challenges when everything doesn't go well, when everything is going wrong. And so that is one key thing that I always pick up on. And another thing is like just picking up on values. Like I was listening to the a story. Les Brown was talking about uh, John Booker T. Washington. He and he was a black guy who at the time, that was when like slavery and all of that, and it's not necessarily slavery, but like uh, you are not allowed to, as a black person, you are not allowed to go to white schools, blah blah blah. And he wanted to create a, an institution of higher education for black people, so basically a university. And in the story, he was talking about how he was walking down the road in a neighborhood. A lady calls him like, "Hey, you," and it's like, uh, yes, ma'am. What would you like for me to do for you? And she's like, I'd like you to cut the wood in my backyard. And he was like, cool, why not? And then he goes to the backyard, chops up the wood, and the lady is like, and when he's done, she's like, how much do I owe you? This was a white lady, and he was like, nothing. Thank you for the uh, pleasure of serving, right? Because his value is to serve people. That is his value. So he leaves, and the lady of the house, one of her waiters comes, and she's like, "Do you know who that is? That's John Booker T. Washington. He's a highly educated black man." And then she sends for him to come back, and she donates millions of dollars to his cause,
Oh,
and he's able to build the Booker T. Washington College or University, which is still standing today. So
yes.
even that is a principle of, like, Kofi, in life you have to be a giver. The ultimate thing is service to mankind. That was a quote in my that the the high school I went to. The lady who owned the school, that was a quote, Auntie Emma. That was a quote in her office. Service to mankind. That is why we are all here, to serve each other.
Amazing.
And once you
Amazing.
understand some of these principles, you are guided by higher principles where it's not just about money, or it's not just about the fame. For me, it's about how do we all help each other to attain our goals, to have a better life together. It's not about me cheating you and having a bigger share. It's about us all collaborating and helping each other and growing together. So, like, these are some of the things I pick from all of these biographies and stories I hear, and I also try and embody in my own life as well, so that I'm a better human.
Well, I have to touch on something political now because you mentioned it. And you said the democracy that we all enjoy. And democracy, the modern liberal democracy, as we are aware of throughout the world, wherever you are, has failed. It's a system that doesn't work, and it's tied to banking capitalism, right? And this is the conversation that I was having with Dave Chappelle in London,
Mm-hmm.
um, with Yasin Bey and Talib Kweli on their podcast, and it's that we don't know. I mean, I say we. I'm saying, like, the general population are unaware that the concept of money is a modern creation. So this piece of paper that they tell us is worth 100 US dollars or 500 South African rand or 50 pounds or whatever, it's a modern creation.
Exactly.
But it is the thing that is causing all of the suffering in our time. And the thing is the money does not exist. It's not real. It's a fantasy that, because everyone in the world believes it, it gives it power. Now, at the point at which you give that piece of paper, which is not even a piece of paper anymore, now it's just a blip on the internet, right? That just moves around, numbers moving around from here to there, and somebody has more numbers in their bank account, therefore can seemingly be more powerful, etc., etc. It it doesn't exist. And when you look at monetary policy, you realize that this thing is it's a modern phenomenon, and the rise of banking capitalism is with the First and Second World Wars. So while they were mowing down a generation of people, saying that it was for the freedom and this, that, and the other, is not the case. They were mowing down those people because it was good for the bankers, because
Mm.
the same banks that were funding the Germans were funding the British and the Americans. And I spent 7 8 years of my life in the arms industry, moving around Africa selling armored vehicles and equipment, you name it. And you see it. It's this big money. And when they talk about the military industrial complex, it's no joke. This is real.
Exactly.
And I mean, when you go back a little bit further and you look at the colonial conquest, who was funding the ships? To build a ship is like in the 1600s was not cheap.
Exactly.
Who was funding it? And it's the same people that were funding the British East India Company, as was funding the Dutch East India Company, and all of this colonial expansion was being funded by these banking families. And when you look at the Federal Reserve Bank, it's privately owned. When you look at the Reserve Bank of South Africa, it's privately owned, and it's these reserve banks. I'm sure it's the same case in Ghana, but
For
it's the
sure.
reserve banks that set monetary policy. So when the interest rate goes up, that's a decision that's been made by a private group of people, and then the economy is in a state, and the politicians are bickering in Parliament, just having a fight about nothing because the money is disappearing.
Exactly.
And my thing is there's the only people that can paint, literally paint a better future are the artists, and the ones that are tapping into their deep selves and into that infinite reality to paint a better future
For sure.
and find those solutions, because those that are in positions of power, they are products of the system, and
Mm-hmm.
they won't change it. Why would you change it if you're benefiting from it?
Exactly.
Because the psychology of it is that as long as I'm winning, it's okay. I mean, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about sharing and collaborating and doing things with other people, and the musicians that are their own record producers and can have ownership of all of their works, etc., and are able to serve the people that they are serving.
Exactly.
Now, if everything's being funneled, I mean, the banking system is designed to serve the people at the top of the banking system. That's it. Capitalism, high finance, you name it. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if you're or the president of the country or in the townships, all the wealth is being funneled up. And when are we going to wake up and realize that the money, one, doesn't exist, two, is worthless, and three, how can we start creating new solutions so that we can survive the oncoming wasteland? And this, when I kind of go back to what I was saying right at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, I go to the UK and I see the UK is because people don't have resilience. When the money collapses, which is going to happen very soon, they're in big trouble. And now in
Exactly.
Africa, I did a lot of work in Zimbabwe, and you see their money disappeared, but they have resilience. The Zimbabweans have resilience,
It's
and so
funny.
they managed to hustle it out through having no currency, and they
Exactly.
survived.
It, it's funny how you mention even currency because, like, right now in Ghana, our currency is like one of the most worst performing currencies in Africa. Right now, it you need 13 units of our currency or higher to gain a dollar. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
So, like, and like even what you're talking about like the whole system. For me, what I always say is like, if you really look into it, you realize the whole world is just a chess game being played by a few powerful people, and they are just moving pieces around, and they control a lot of power and stuff. However, at the end of the day, what I believe is the power still remains in the hands of the people if we work together. Because the only thing that makes a king powerful is because the people choose to cede power to that king and give
Yes.
him or her that power. But if the people are
Yes.
like, no, we don't want to be ruled. We we want to we give you the power. We are taking it back. We want change, true and lasting change. Then the people they will realize, and even it was something in I think Lubomir's video where it was like the people have more power the than the people. Like, we are more than them. So if we come together and we work together, there's nothing they can do against us.
This is my position. My position is that the greatest of the world's natural resources is man and woman.
Exactly.
So everyone can trade their commodities and whatever. The greatest of the natural resources is man and woman. And economics 101 is the study of supply and
And
demand
demand.
in a finite system, right?
Hmm.
In a finite environment, because there's only
Exactly.
so much in the world. Now, my question to you, what
Hmm.
natural resource today is in extreme demand and very little supply?
Is it creativity
Well,
or
my thing
innovation?
is the human being in their wholeness.
Oh, for sure, for sure,
I think
for sure.
when you meet a human that is whole, and so when I say whole, I mean like
Oh,
they've done this self-development, they've done
I
this
get what
work,
you
they've
mean.
gone deep down into the chasm, right?
Hmm.
And they've, like, again, coming back to Lumabir's video, he's gone into the shadow, into the darkness, and has opened the heart and let it emerge, and they rise up in their dignity and glory. That man and that woman that are of that rank and have done that work, they are infinitely valuable
For
in
sure.
whatever they do, whether that's in a position of leadership, as a trader in the market, as a painter, or whatever field that they're in, they will bring immense value. And the demand for that is huge in this world where people are struggling and crying out for guidance.
For sure.
And on that note, you were asking me about this book, The Ten Symphonies of Gorka Koenig, and I am actively doing classes on it.
Mm,
I do a 4-part reading of it, and it goes through the politics of the 21st century, the monetary of the 20th century, monetary policy, the First and Second World War, uh, what was actually happening under the surface. How do we then unlock man and woman and join in collaboration to become these beacons of light that can guide people into a better future? And touching on Western classical music, touching on European culture, the colonial adventure, all of these different aspects, it's all contained in this amazing argument,
mm.
and it's a fictional biography. It's absolutely magnificent. I love the book. I teach the book, and I want to
Nice.
invite you onto the course. And I
Sure.
want to invite anyone who's listening onto the course. I don't charge for it. You will find out why I don't charge for it at the end of it. um, it's a 4-part course,
Hmm.
and it's like 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. We'll separate it over 4 weeks, and you go through the book. Yeah, I'd like to invite you to do it,
I
and anybody
accept.
else who's online and curious. You will see the world from a different perspective. I can promise you that
For sure. I
after
accept.
doing it.
Yeah, I accept the invitation. Definitely. I want to learn
Fantastic.
more.
Awesome, man. And anyone else who wants to learn, welcome. Yeah, because you're talking about doing things that you love. And personally, I think I was kind of running away from something, or trying to, or not accepting that that was something that I loved, because I had some other idea in my head that I should be doing this, or I should be doing that,
Hmm.
or I'm chasing this dream or chasing that dream. And one of the things that I realized again on this trip is that I love teaching this book. I love it. And I love the feedback I get from people when I teach it.
What you were talking about, like, we, when I was younger, I realized, like, I'd hear people talking about, being conscious. A lot of people, like 90% of the world is asleep, and like, zombies. And like, I didn't get it then, because I was like, yo, these are all regular people. Like I can interact with them. We share stories. I meet them when I go to town, etc. But then over time, you realize like there's a program, right? That that is out there that programs the society to act in a way congruent with what the powers that be want. So
Yes.
so the thing is that the more you learn and you really uncover stuff, you learn about history, about like finance, about what has gone on in the world, you start to really see the world on a different level where you start to realize it's not, you take yourself out of that mindset of it's like, oh, it's me versus the next person by me. That's not the thing.
Mm.
It's us versus the few at the top who are basically using their power to suppress everyone else, even though they could use that same power and resources to help transform the world and make the lives of people better. They choose to just use it to enrich themselves at the cost of people's lives, at the cost of resources, etc. So yeah, like the more I learn, I realize like, yo, this is a big game. Like it's a war. It's a serious war. And it's being fought on so many fronts and at so many different levels. From the educational system to the finance system, at so many levels, even at resources, natural resources, business. So if we don't sit up and become conscious and truly start to work on ourselves to become the people that the world needs to help it grow and get out of this cocoon, then we are going to
Yes.
stay in this state and keep suffering. So like for me, I'm always ready and
But
willing to
suffer.
learn.
But that's it. But that's your saying. That suffering is a state.
Exactly.
You can. You you can choose to not suffer. And don't get me wrong. Like there are things that are horrific. We lose people in our lives, and one goes through grief. There are times when we have absolutely nothing. We don't have money to put food on the table. There are times that the children are sick and you're worried about them, but you don't have to suffer.
Exactly.
It doesn't. You can still, and if you can maintain uh, an element of gratitude and
Yep.
positivity,
Yep.
even through the hardest of difficulties,
Mhm.
which we see in Africa with the
Mhm.
resilience of the people. We do see it on a daily basis. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you look at some of the aunties, 60, 70, 80 years old, and they've lived through the most difficult things. You like difficulties we can't even imagine
Hmm.
in our time, and
Mhm.
they have these wonderful smiles on their faces, and they're just
Exactly.
teaching and cooking and serving
Exactly.
and being beautiful,
Exactly.
and we and they can teach us something, and we can
Mhm.
learn from that example, and that is something that comes from a much deeper space, and we need to tap into that space
Exactly.
and start awakening that and being
Exactly.
that.
Because like what you're touching on, I started to truly understanding when I was listening to Sadhguru. He's an Indian, uh, yeah, he's an Indian teacher,
Mm.
and he was talking about all of human experience. It occurs within, right? So how you experience the world, it all comes out of how your mind is set, how you are set inwardly. So two people can be in the same situation, or two people could be living on earth. To one, it feels like heaven. To the other, it feels like hell. But they are all on the same earth. So
Yes.
it's all, he was relating it to the inner engineering, working within. When you get certain levels of understanding, you start to realize like you don't always have to fret over everything. You don't always have to
Yeah.
um, go to every argument you are invited to. You don't always have to react to everything. You don't have to be triggered by everything you see on the news or on Twitter
Yeah.
or on social media. You learn how
Mm,
to keep your peace. You learn how to navigate, have even perspective, and
mm,
understand how you are truly blessed, regardless of how other people around you are saying, like, oh man, things are so hard, life is so bad, I can't stand it. But it's like, for me, I'm living in Africa, and I'm like, yo, bro, I'm so blessed. I might not be living in the UK or in the States where they have so many resources, but I feel blessed. My
yeah.
family, the family I have, even having the opportunity to do the work that I do,
Mm,
loving it, and getting paid for it, that's a huge blessing. And even the blessing of life. If you are sitting right now, you can stand on your feet. You're experiencing the sunlight hitting your skin. You can eat, you can taste the food. You're truly blessed. So, like, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Because even there was a book I was reading, it's called Anti Fragility or Anti Fragile.
yes.
And
Anti-fragile. Yes, yes, yes.
he was talking about the concept of, you know, it doesn't mean, sometimes people might misconstrue it and see it like, oh, you are like a robot, you don't have any feelings, you don't know how to access your feelings, you are just suppressing everything that's happening to you. Not necessarily true. You can be fully in touch with your feelings, and also and experience it fully, and not let it rule you all the time. Because they are like people who, if you say a certain word, is going to trigger them because they are controlled entirely by their emotions. If you put
Yeah.
on like a MAGA hat, they'll be
Yeah.
pissed off. If you put on, like, a symbol, a certain symbol, that will trigger them, and they're like, oh man, I hate you, or so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And it's like, you, as a human being, you have to get to a point where you can maintain your peace. Or else, if people know what buttons to press to get a certain reaction out of you, then they already have control over you. So they know that,
Mm,
if I want to get to Kofi and I want him to act in this way, show him this image, show him, put out this word, and you have him.
yeah.
But if you keep your own peace and you have a certain level of understanding, you know that truly you
Yeah.
are in control, and you don't have to react to everything, and you can
Yeah.
ride the wave.
And and you can release all control
Exactly. And still be at
because you're not
peace. And still be
because
at
you, then
peace.
you realize you're in complete control, so you can release all
All
control, and then
control.
you realize realize you have no control over anything.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's interesting because people you can choose whether you want this life to be heaven or hell,
Exactly.
and you can choose
And
whether
I've
you want to live in a nightmare or in a dream.
Yeah, and honestly, I've lived in the nightmare. I've lived in
Oh, me
hell where,
too.
yeah, where I
Yeah.
was depressed, where everything would trigger me, where I was always in fear of everything I read in the news, and I felt like nothing I do, like, really matters on the grander scale. But then
Yeah.
over time, as I understood the power of humanity, the power of our minds, like
Mm,
how much change we can make, even from an individual, a single individual, how much change you can, like, create. Like, it's crazy. You start
yes.
to realize, like, yo, like, I'm so powerful. We are so powerful, we don't know it. And once you start to really take back your power and understand how much is how how much is embodied in you, because you are connected to the source, the ultimate source, and you can allow the ultimate
Exactly.
source to work through you. Where that's where you relinquish
Yes.
control and allow source to work through you. And so once you start to understand that, you realize, like, man, like, nothing is beyond me. There's no issue that I cannot surmount. Yes, it might be painful. Yes, it might bring you grief, but you still have the strength to survive and to go through so much. Because, like, I was reading this book by Viktor Frankl, Man Search for Meaning, and he was talking about what they had to go through at the internment camps during the Holocaust, and it was just crazy. Like the torture they had to go through, and yet they still had their human dignity. They still, they still held their head up high. They didn't bow down to the oppression, and within them they were giants. Within their soul they were giants, even though everything was taken away from them. So like reading that, it just helps me to understand, like, yo, the human soul is powerful. Nothing can crush the human soul unless the person allows himself or herself to be crushed. If the person is ready to resist to the end, there's nothing you can do to crush a human soul.
That's the thing. There's, unless the person allows it, you allow your soul to be crushed.
Exactly.
Only you can create that. Only
Exactly.
you can accept that.
Exactly.
But if you do the flip opposite, and it's like you said, and it's that poem that I mentioned at the beginning, the first line is, as markets emerge on our African soil, who will be fed from our laborers' toil? And the last line is, there is still hope, nobility can exist, liberty, our motto, liberty is the capacity to resist.
Exactly. Exactly.
And yeah, man, I really, truly believe that Africa is the final frontier. And I think is the opportunity lies here. And I think we have to understand and learn from the mistakes of the West, not repeat them here, and
Mm-hmm.
create something new and exciting and in tune with nature,
Mm-hmm.
as all of the traditional teachings of this continent are. Because whether you look at the Zulu in Natal, or I don't know what tribes you have in Ghana, or who the ancient people were
Yeah.
across other parts of Africa, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all of the culture and the root knowledges and understandings of nature, they're all there. It's all there.
Exactly.
And it's a matter of going back to the identity and bringing back the diaspora that have gone out elsewhere and have made a success of themselves, come back home. And for those that haven't made the success out there, come back home, make a success in Africa. The opportunity is there.
Numerous. Because there are a lot of problems here as well. you know.
Exactly,
The
exactly.
problems
But
equal
how
opportunity.
exciting!
Yeah, very exciting.
You know, it's exciting. I mean, if you look at the state of America, I mean, the ghettos there are worse than in Africa. I'm sorry, it's just it's a reality,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen it. You go places, and you're like, this is people here. I mean, even in parts of London, and I'm like, bloody hell, this is worse than like the worst places in Zimbabwe. You know, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
there, and I'm like, you know, people walking around the streets in Zimbabwe with a smile on their face. You know, and over there in the UK, you're like, what is going on? What is going on? And I'm like, what is stopping you from just taking your dole from the government, getting a flight to Zimbabwe, and just set up shop there? Do
So
something
true.
there. You'll have a much better time. You'll be able to breathe because the air's much cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need some food, take a handful of seeds, throw it on the ground, and 6 months later you've got food.
Mm-hmm. So true.
The earth is so
So true.
fertile,
Yeah.
so fertile. But let's see, let's see. I find Africa exciting, and I'm calling on people to come and experience it, even if you just come out for a couple of weeks. Just see it, because in seeing
Exactly.
it, something will open in your mind. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's vast. If you like desert, go to the desert. If you like ocean, go somewhere on the coast. If you like tropical, go to the tropical parts of
yeah.
Africa. If you speak Arabic, go to the north. If you want to climb up a mountain, go some. You know, it's a massive continent.
It's a huge
You
continent.
know, so The people are the best.
Yeah. Warm, welcoming, very nice. You know, you can be walking on the street and like ask someone for help. They will take their time to help you, like, hey, this is where you go, blah, blah, blah. But it's like you go to maybe like a street in London and you stop someone like, nah, I don't have the time. I'm going to work, or I have to get to the train, you know.
Well, in Johannesburg, don't stop anyone on the street because they might shoot you.
Oh shit.
Cry. Oh, hi, can you give me directions here? Yes, but it's going to cost you a watch and your wallet.
Oh my god, that's funny.
But the people are friendly.
Oh, for sure.
Friendly. How's the crime in Ghana? Is it a safe country?
Yeah, that's a very highly safe country. Very safe. I mean, there's no country without any crime at all. But yeah, it's a very safe country.
South Africa is funny. Cape Town is this kind of bubble that's like a little bit of Europe in Africa. Mm-hmm. It's like Africa for beginners is what I always call it. Africa for beginners. It's like, come here and you are in Africa and there are townships and there is poverty and crime, but if you just stick to the one side, you're in Europe, but just with the African feel.
Exactly.
And then when you kind of go out a little bit further, you go a little bit further north, and then it gets a little bit more Africa. Mm-hmm. And then it's not until you like get out of like southern Africa and you start moving Zimbabwe, Malawi, that's when you start going like, now it's Botswana, now it's a little bit more Africa, and the further north you go, it gets more and more Africa until you're like in fully fledged Africa.
Exactly.
Now you're getting the real experience.
Exactly. Yeah, in the heart of Africa.
There's still humans here. That haven't been robotized, and yeah, man, the world is vast. See it, taste it. Is there any parting note or anything else you want to put out there? Something you want to share? Anything?
I mean, I think we touch on it where it's like we should all work on ourselves and take responsibility for our lives. It's not enough for us to just identify the problems around us. We should rise to the occasion. For us as individuals to be able to rise to the occasion or to the challenges around us, we need to develop ourselves first and do the inner work, which will be nasty because there are so many things you are willfully ignoring about yourself, your character, the way you approach life that you need to tackle and correct. And once we do that inner work, and it's a continuous journey, but once you've started that process of metamorphosis. You're turning from the caterpillar into the butterfly. And
yes,
that's what I'll say. Yeah.
Yes. You said the word. You said the word. Metamorphosis.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the New Nomos podcast. Another amazing conversation on my journey through this podcast. Is absolutely amazing. To be completely honest, I don't even know how this episode came together. Even at the end of it, there's some part that I edited out of me asking Kofi, like, wait a second, how did I get in contact with you? Because I couldn't remember. It was just this journey has become a beast of its own, which is pulling me instead of pushing me, which is really beautiful. And so once again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I've put in the episode description all of the relevant links to what we discussed in the episode, including the link to Kofi's Instagram page. Do follow him. He's absolutely amazing. And if you're not already, please subscribe to the podcast, follow my Instagram, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, because from now on, all the episodes will also have the long-form video edit on YouTube. And so for this episode, that's it. Thank you.